Guys, thanks for coming. I guess, you know, my name is Berg, and they're calling me the founder of dairy pricing. To give you a little background, I started dairying in September of '77. And at that time we were under the government support price, and for me it was a great place to be. Farming is what I was going to do. You know, I tried working in town, but I couldn't do that. So my milk price went up because the support price went up 33 out of the first 36 months. And it was all because everything went up. Support price parity, you know, it went up. And just like all of you, you know, you produce milk, you make money, you produce more milk, you know, things are working right, and that's what you do. And then came the '83 Farm Bill. I never got involved at all in the dairy policies until '96. And that was when the ARPA movement was involved. And do any of you remember that ARPA, which created Lanco, Penland, so forth, created Seam Central in Wisconsin? Well, three of the gentlemen who put up the majority of the money to create that lived within 30 miles from me. Their names Dennis Jelly, Jim McGee, and Ron Clevenstein. I got to know these gentlemen just prior to them doing this. They were all NFO members, I was not, and you just created friendship. And as they were building this, it totally made sense to me for dairy farmers to become price makers, not price takers. And I was interested in how they were going to do that because our milk check was shrinking compared to our cost of operating our farms. I wanted to see something different. At least we knew we were going to make money. Well, I didn't know how many cows there were in the United States. I didn't know what U.S. production was. You know, Green Bay traded cheese, and that was a boys' club. You know, those who belonged to it, you owned a chair. They showed up. They always said at 6:30 in the morning, Friday morning, and they had breakfast all together and talked about what the price was going to be. And then they'd go to the exchange at 8 o'clock, and then for half an hour trade cheese, and that's what it was. I don't know why they chose the Green Bay Cheese Exchange to be the price discovery system, but they did. In '96, we also went to component pricing. Now, Wisconsin is cheese country. 85 to 90% of the milk in Wisconsin goes to cheese, and 85 to 90% of that cheese is not consumed in Wisconsin. So the price of cheese is big to Wisconsin's economy because dairying is Wisconsin's biggest industry. Well, when we got paid on 3.5, we could all figure out our milk checks, you know, what we were in comparison to the cheese factory next door, because there's a lot of, at that time, a lot of independent cheese factories. And so to find a new market was easy. I mean, if you weren't being paid well and another factory was paying 30, 40 cents a hundredweight more for a few months than yours, you looked at a place to move your milk. But when they went to component pricing, you had nothing you could compare to because you didn't understand it. They were paying you all on these components instead of paying you fat and then say 17 cents on point of butter fat and so forth. So my wife and I bought a computer and we started working with, I started looking up, because now I had the ability to access information. And what I learned was there's 9 million cows approximately in the United States. There was 90,000 dairy farmers. I got to understand how things were being done in Green Bay. At the same time, there was questioning about the activity in Green Bay, and Tommy Thompson, the governor, then at that time put together a task force because the farmers, Wisconsin and Minnesota, wanted to investigate the activities and how they were trading, and asked for one thing, that the buyers could not trade against intentions, which in layman language means that a major buyer of cheese, and let's say Kraft, could not sell at the Green Bay Cheese Exchange. They could only buy. Because they could benefit by selling a few loads of cheese, dropping the cheese price 5–10 cents on a given day, and then that next week buy hundreds to maybe thousands of loads of cheese at the lower price to benefit their corporation. Well, Tommy Thompson overloaded the task force with people from the industry, and not producers, and on October 17th of that year, they decided that no, none of the participants at the Green Bay Cheese Exchange would do that. And it was only involving block cheese. Well, the next day, on the 18th, the cheese market dropped 21 cents because barrels were down 30 cents from the blocks. And after that activity, that's when the Green Bay Cheese Exchange got it closed, and I went to CME. Well, the advantage of going to the CME is there was transparency. We had a way to see what was being traded at what price, being traded 3 days a week. So as I was working trying to put these numbers together and accumulating information, we got to the December of '98, and in Wisconsin on cheese milk we had 17.34 milk in December. In February we had 10.27. And the cheese market dropped 70 cents in 3 weeks in January. And my local cheese maker, who I was not shipping milk to, said, you know, the co-ops have the right to fix this through the structure of marketing agreements in common. So I got to investigating that, and I went to looking at, because I had moved my milk to NFO at the time through the ARMPA process, as many of you traded Lanco. So I started asking how much cheese was traded. I wanted to know these questions, and what I found out from the gentleman that gave me the information, there was 63 carloads of cheese traded in those 3 weeks. And there's 44,000 pounds of cheese in a carload, and that number came out to 2,640,000 pounds of cheese. So it was either 61 or 63. I have to go back to the crash of '99. Gentlemen, I was saying to producers in support of an entity called Dairy Relief, which was created by created by DFA, that if dairy farmers supported an entity, a cooperative entity at $1 per month per cow, there would be $9 million from those 9 million cows to do something to balance our overproduction. What it would buy with 44,000 pounds of cheese at $2 a pound, which would give them Wisconsin $18 milk, would cost us $88,000 to buy a carload, and I rounded it to 90. We had enough money to buy 100 carloads of cheese a month. So 61 or 63 carloads coming into a 3-week period was not a big deal to buy, would it be? At $1 per cow per month, you lost $7. We lost $7 in pay price. So about a month or so later, Dairy Herd magazine or Dairy Today wrote an article saying, it was a 1-page article that says when the dairy producers produce 2% too much milk, the price of milk will drop 40%. And I got really peeved, because no good business person allows 2% of anything to destroy 40% of your price. You simply remove the 2%. That simple. That's how you do it. So I started working on a way that we could remove this, remove the product. So if we gave it to the food pantries or the schools or whatever, just let's get it to people. Instead of take less for it, let's move it to people. And that's where I've worked toward today. And that's where I've worked toward today. I'm not into supply management. I'm not into quotas. I believe what the dairy producer has to do today, because I don't believe anybody in this country can tell anybody how much milk is needed tomorrow. I believe the American consumer wants your production. You simply have to balance it when there's too much. And that's what dairy pricing is about. It's for you as dairy producers to stand at the back door of your processing plant and ask a price, because I believe that's why you do not receive a price. You've never asked. ARPA was talking about asking a price for your milk at the front door. With dairy pricing, because they had no monies coming in dues like dairy pricing does, There was no money to go to the back door of the processing plant and help your processing plant balance when you have overproduction. Two things cause overproduction. We're either producing more than what the consumer wants, or they reduce their consumption. Because you can reduce production, and if they reduce consumption, we still have oversupply, can't we? If they increase consumption more than we increase production, we have a shortage, which our experience was last year. Perfect storm. We have an increased value in the US dollar, we have more production around the world, and now we got too much milk in the United States, don't we? We have to balance. Nobody knows that from time to time, and the concept of dairy pricing is balancing your production. First asking a price you need for your milk, and then when we have too much, simply have an order at the back door of your processing plant on your milk. Because I'll explain why it has to be your milk. And then you remove that milk and move that milk off to the humanitarian community, because they do it at no cost to you. And it's going to the people who need it. Otherwise, if you pay for it, you have this whole structure. In corporate America funds feeding America, the banks, the corporations, everybody's working to take care of the 1 in 5 that don't receive. In building this cooperative, I worked with Marvin Bishore at Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, to get the understanding what Capra-Volstead meant. And learning and understanding what it said, reading it, and explaining, because I initially wanted to go to the Mercantile Exchange. I wanted to take $9 million and go to the Mercantile Exchange and just buy right off the chair. And I'm asking Marvin about this, and he says it's illegal. So I'm reading to him, or saying to him, which I've memorized, I said the Capra-Volstead, which was signed into law on February 18, 1922, says that farmers and ranchers, producers of agricultural products, have the right to price their production. They have a right to price their production with their neighbor if they form a co-op. If they farm a marketing agreement, it's co-ops together, and they have the right to form a federation and agency. So I said to Marvin, why can't I go to the CME? He said, you go back and say that again to me. I said, it says farmers and ranchers, producers of agricultural commodities have the right to price their production. He goes, stop. It says they can price their production. That means you can price yours, and you can price yours. But if you want to work together, you've got to form a co-op so you can talk price. So I said, okay, what's my problem? He said, Robin, do you know whose milk is in the cheese at the CME? I don't have a clue. How am I going to follow your milk on a truck to a processing plant, to a truck, to the CME? I got no way of doing it. But because I was vocal in speaking up, I ended up on the state dairy committee at NFO in Wisconsin. And I'm sitting at a meeting one night before the state meeting, and we're sitting around there. There's a gentleman, an attorney from Milwaukee, comes in, employed by NFO, and he said, oh, by the way, we've got some dollars have come in from this dairy plant that filed bankruptcy, and so there's a little money coming in because now they've sold off all the assets and you're getting like 30 cents on the dollar or whatever. So on my ride back with the national director, I started asking him questions, because this was before my time, this bankruptcy. Oh, he said, when that plant closed, it was full of cheese. And he said, I'm really peeved, because he said, we had right to that cheese in that plant because it was our milk that was unpaid for. But NFO didn't want to take the action, so now we're just getting what's coming out of the brick and mortar. A light went on. I can't price your milk at the farm. You make a raw product. I can't price your milk at the front door. But when your milk went in that front door, you weren't paid, were you? So it's still your milk when it went in there as fluid or powder or cheese or whatever it is. But I can stand at the back door with your money, with an entity, a co-op we create together, place an order in competition to the normal buyers and say, this is what we have to have. If you won't pay it, then we're going to buy it and remove it. What you say isn't worth what we are asking, and we're going to give it to somebody else and promote a new customer. That's how dairy pricing works. So you're asking your consumer for a price, and then you're balancing if you have more than they want to maintain that price. That's what dairy pricing is about. I have people who are concerned about their dime. Well, I'm giving up a dime. No, you're not. Not in my eyes. My eyes say you're investing a dime because your dime comes to dairy pricing. But it's not dairy pricing's dime. It's your dime in dairy pricing. And dairy pricing takes your dime and goes back to your processing plant because you can have the right to price your milk. And then when we pay that processing plant for that powder or cheese or milk, it goes back in their account. And then when you get your next milk check, it comes back to you. So what you're doing is using your dime to balance, protect the price, and maintain your price and income. That's what the dime is about. Or whatever more it might take to balance. Because you'd much rather balance 2% than lose 40% in price, I would think. Because if you want $20 milk, it would take 40 cents to balance, wouldn't it? If you're over 2%. Or otherwise you can have a 40% deduct. And that's what we experienced in 2002. Instead of having $20 milk, we had $12 milk. We had 5% too much milk. We should have spent $1, right? We'd had $19 milk. In Wisconsin, we'd take another $2 off for processing, for make allowance. But 17 beats 11.35. That's what Wisconsin milk was in 2002. Another experience that I had, and it followed in '99, is that said, well, we had all this milk, that's why we had this crash. Well, in August of '99, we were back to $2 cheese. If we had so much milk in January, why did we go back to $2? Because they had the right to fluctuate the market. What happened in August of '99? They found 65 million pounds of cheese someplace. That wasn't in the July report. And where did the price of milk go by November? Right back down the same thing, two $7 drops. We would have bought the cheese in January and the 65 million pounds of cheese in August, it would have cost us 8.5 cents a hundredweight. But instead we suffered two $7 pay drops. So that's why I've worked with, and others have helped me, many others have helped me create this to explain to you, you can do something. The cooperative law under capital laws gives you the right to do this. And support your processor, because remember, you make a raw product, it's got to be manufactured. People want it, but you never have asked the price. And that's what dairy pricing is about. How you spend your money. You can either spend it in price and receive it that way, or take the falls. That's what dairy pricing is, and how dairy pricing works for you. I'll give you an example of why I'm not a supporter of supply management. In 2001, after we went through low milk prices after 99, 2000, and 2001 August, the industry told us that we as dairy producers had our production totally in line with demand. That we would have good milk prices for several months. And then milk went down 40%. What happened in 2001? 9/11. We lost 4,000 citizens. And immediately the cheese market went down. Those 4,000 citizens did not consume 2% of the nation's milk. But they had a reason, traded on emotions, and down went the cheese market. And then never came back until 2004. If we had had the money and stood at the back door of our processing plants and simply said to the crafts of the world, no, you can trade above this, because remember the law says we have the right to set the minimum price. We don't close the CME because we want them to move that market higher above our support price. Government has no support price. When we had 11.35 milk in 2009, we had a floor price on powder at 90 cents. No floor price today on a new farm bill. Powder the other day was 71. So where do you think your next milk chicks go? That's the reason for dairy pricing. It's not a quick fix. Quick fixes are temporary. My vision and the whole thing is this, is to fix the dairy industry. Can't change price discovery. There's too many dollars against you to change that. But you have a system here that I believe and many others that you can do something about your price of milk and create new customers. When you take your milk to somebody else who's not consuming your milk, you're working to create a new customer. You know yourself, you can't taste a billboard, but you can taste a product, can't you? And Feeding America says that they have families that have not had milk in their diets for 2 generations. And when they take and put milk on those kids' tables, they never stop drinking milk. So this is your opportunity to use the structure that's already in place to grow new consumers. And that's what dairy pricing is set up to do. First, balance, price, balance, and then move product needed to those 1 in 5 children that are not consuming dairy products. That's what you're working for.